Hello viewers, thank you for joining us. This is an English edition of news from Dalsan TV, Somalia's premier television news network, broadcasting to you the latest news from Somalia and around the world in both English and Somali. My name is Yunus Deko and these are some of our top news headlines. More bodies found after double car-bomb militant attack. 3 convicted Al-Shabaab operatives executed in Mogadishu. And WHO calls for urgent Tigray access to save lives. Welcome to this broadcast from Dalsan TV. More bodies have been found at the scene of the explosions in Mogadishu, even as family members searched for their loved ones who have been missing since the double car bomb attack. Victims of the attack have overwhelmed Mogadishu hospitals, which last recorded such huge destructions 5 years ago.
48 hours after the deadly double car bomb attacks in Mogadishu, rescuers have found more bodies trapped below destructed buildings. At least 106 people have died as a result of the explosion claimed by the Somali militant group Al-Shabaab. More than 350 people are nursing various injuries following the attack on Saturday at a busy intersection at the heart of the capital, meters from the headquarters of the Ministry of Education. Bulldozers were continuing to clear the blast site in the capital Mogadishu on Monday in the hunt for bodies feared trapped under the rubble. The injured have overwhelmed health systems in the city following the attack, which is the deadliest bomb explosion in 5 years. The Somali police has not commented on the newly retrieved bodies. Relatives looking for their loved ones who were last seen at a vicinity of the explosion thronged the crime scene and various hospitals in Mogadishu. The Zobe Junction and KM5 road, which had been closed since Saturday, resumed operations and motorists were on Monday allowed to use the road. A student who heeded to the directive of the government which ordered schools closed so that students can take part in a national blood donation drive said the acts were violent and intolerable.
dareenkayga wallahi marka meeshaan arkay aad ugu naxay waayo meeshaan anaysan ku ogaan jirin waxa ogaa jiray iyadoo dhisan waxaan arki jiray iyadoo oo la maraayo gaadiidka wax dhan socdaan wallahi maanta aad iyo aad ugu xumaa baraad isbitaalaha u soconaa insha Allah waxaan rajaynaynaa ugu yaraan hal qof ina dhiig siino waayo hal qof hada dhiig siisid waxay ka fiican tahay adoo maanta dhaha gurigaaga jooga dhahaya wax in gargaar loo fiday waa dadkaas waxay ka fiican tahay adoo xitaa hadaan dhiigaaga awoodin xitaa ina faataxada ku soo tuftid maantaas intaas ayaa wax weyn u ah.
The attack in Mogadishu occurred on a day when the president, Prime Minister and other senior officials were meeting to discuss expanded efforts to combat violent extremism, especially by the Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabaab group that often targets the capital. It also came 5 years after another massive blast in the exact same location killed over 500 people.
Intaasan isku bahaysan inta isku jirna waa intaasna qof xumaan meel ka soo gali karta ama mid kamid inuu xun yahay noo sheegi karta ama noo qanci kartaa ma jirto aad iyo aad ay u mahadsantiin guushu waa soo dhawaaday.
Somalia's government has been engaged in a high-profile new offensive against the extremist group that the United States has described as one of Al-Qaeda's deadliest organizations. The president has described it as total war against the extremists who control large parts of central and The president has described it as total war against the extremists who control large parts of central and southern Somalia and have been the target of scores of U.S. airstrikes in recent years. The extremists have responded by killing prominent clan leaders in an apparent effort to dissuade support for government offensive.
3 convicted members and fighters of the militant group Al-Shabaab have been executed following a ruling by the Somali military court. The trio had conducted several attacks, including close-quarter assassinations and car explosives that killed at least 12 people. 3 members of the Somali militant group Al-Shabaab were on Monday executed by a firing squad following a ruling by the Somali military court. They were executed in Mogadishu under the supervision of officials of the Somali military court. The trio were convicted in 2019 for several terrorist explosions that claimed lives of government officials and dozens of civilians. The Armed Forces Court found them guilty of murdering 15 people between 2018 and 2020. Hassan Ali Maalim Barre was convicted for detonating a car bomb in Wadajir district on November 2018, killing at least 20 people. Noor Ibrahim Mahadale was found guilty of delivering an improvised explosive device that led to the death of Mahas deputy mayor in 2019. Isaac Kero Adan was prosecuted for hurling grenades at civilians, killing 2 in Sobaad and Wedo in 2020. Al-Shabaab controls much of the country's southern and central parts, and research published in October by the Hiral Institute said the militant raised more cash than the Somali government. The executions come just days after a double car bombing hit the center of Mogadishu, killing more than 100 people with close to 300 others injured. 2 huge car bombings rocked Somalia's Ministry of Education in the capital Mogadishu on Saturday. The Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab extremist group, which often targets the capital and controls large parts of the country, claimed responsibility, saying its objective was to hit the education ministry. It claimed the ministry was an enemy base that receives support from non-Muslim countries and is committed to removing Somali children from the Islamic faith. Al-Shabaab usually doesn't make claims of responsibility when large numbers of civilians are killed, which was the case in October 2017. Al-Shabaab usually doesn't make claims of responsibility when large numbers of civilians are killed, which was the case in an October 2017 blast at the same site, but it has been angered by a high-profile new offensive by the Somali government that aims to shut down its financial network. The group said it is committed to fighting until the country is ruled by Islamic law, and it asked civilians to stay away from government areas. Meanwhile, officials of the Somali government, the Somali army, and a local militia supporting Somali security forces visited Masjid Ali Gadood, which was fully liberated from Al-Shabaab on Sunday. The delegation, which went to the town to assess the needs of the villagers, was led by the governor for Middle Shabelle, Ahmed Makaran. Federal and state leaders from Hirshabelle state have visited the newly liberated town of Masjid Ali Gadood, which was removed from the hands of the Somali militant group Al-Shabaab. The Somali National Army, with the help of the local people, took control of the Ali Gadood mosque area in the Middle Shabelle region on Sunday. Danab, the US specially trained forces of Somali National Army, conducted the offensive operation targeting members of the militant, according to the Ministry of Information of the federal government of Somalia. The governor for Middle Shabelle region, Ahmed Makaran, led military and senior officials of the Somali government in assessing the situation of the town. The governor has appealed for help to respond to civilian population who are lacking basic human needs like healthcare and education.
iyo dhammaan maamulka gobolka iyo kan degmooyinka qof kastoo meeshan joogto maanta waxa loo wada yimiday ama aan meeshan u nimiday cadawga muddooyinkan meeshan ummadda ku dul fadhiyay Masaajid Ali Gadood.
We have successfully managed to remove the militants who had controlled this town. They were in occupation, and we are happy that we have removed them from Masjid Ali Gadood, where they occupied for 15 years, said Governor Ahmed Makaran.
waxaan maanta taaganahay qof kastoo maaragtay horu aragtay meesha inta qoryaha soo qaateen ayuu garar waaweyn ay ka qudbayhayeen geedka hoostiisa.
Masjid Ali Gadood has been a front line between the Somali forces who have instituted a forward operating base and Al-Shabaab, which has been controlling the town. Hundreds of militants were killed in the operation to flush out the group, which has besieged governments in Mogadishu for close to 15 years. The successful offensive follows recent military advancements by the Somali National Army in pursuit of Al-Shabaab to remove them from parts of central and southern Somalia. The liberation of the latest town comes just days after Somalia's government said the military forced Al-Shabaab out of 30 villages in clashes this month that killed more than 200 militants. Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud responded to the deadly siege by announcing a total war against the militants. The Somali government has issued an urgent plea for international help for wounded victims of the devastating car bombs at the weekend that claimed the lives of 100 people. The attack tests the government's ability to secure the country, including the capital, which has nearly 2.5 million people. Al-Shabaab fighters have stepped up further their attacks in Somalia since President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud was elected in May and vowed an all-out war against the Islamists. Meanwhile, the Delhi Declaration has been adopted after the UNC Counter-Terrorism Committee meeting reaffirmed that terrorism in all forms and manifestations constitute one of the most serious threats to global peace and security. It has urged all member states to ensure zero tolerance towards terrorism, consistent with their obligations under international law.
Terrorist attack survivor from this very place or from my own country. I'm a terror attack survivor and a victim from the Brussels, Belgium. But I'm very honored that they've been invited me as a victim of terrorism, not that only the very attack of Mumbai city will be invited to hear me out. And when I see this change taking place, when I see this happening, when I see that it is collaboratively, taken the stories of each person and they will see what next to be done. Not only that, hearing people's stories.
The declaration on countering the use of new and emerging technologies for terror purposes also underlined the terrorists getting opportunity to access safe havens in various countries, which is a concern for the UN.
We have a very solid basis already of more than recommendations, but actually requirements that stem from Security Council resolutions that are mandatory for all states to implement. And on countering the financing of terrorism, they range from what we now call basic measures such as criminalization of terrorism financing, effective prosecution, investigation.
Officials from the World Health Organization say access to northern Ethiopia is urgent to save the lives of millions of people facing a perfect storm of deprivation. Cholera and measles outbreak have been recorded in Amhara, Amphar, and where aid agencies have limited access. The UN Health Agency WHO expressed serious concerns about a likely spike in preventable diseases that have been recorded in Tigray.
The fighting has intensified in recent weeks, spreading into other parts of the country, and Eritrean troops are advancing with Ethiopian troops on several fronts. The conflict has forced hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians to flee their homes, many for a second or third time. We hear reports of an escalation in airstrikes in Tigray employing explosive weapons. There are indiscriminate attacks that are killing more innocent people and damaging infrastructure.
As WHO warns of a looming crisis, peace talks between warring sides on Ethiopia's Tigray conflict have been extended into Monday. An official familiar with the arrangements for the talks had confirmed to the media. The talks are being held in South Africa. And with that story, we come to the end of this broadcast, an English edition of news from Dalsan TV, Somalia's premier television news network, bringing you the latest news from Somalia and around the world. Until we meet again, have a lovely time and enjoy the rest of your viewing.